Welcome, everyone, to another edition of our show here, Homestead from Scratch. I am Greg Dowd, joined by Logan Hyde from Hideaway Homestead and John Tejan from DJ Cattle Company. And we're here tonight to talk about power considerations for the homestead. So, before we get started, if you guys just want to talk a little bit about how everything's been going with you guys and have a little chat for a second, kind of working on a couple things in the background here. So, um, Logan, man, you had an exciting announcement this week.
Oh yeah, yeah. So we are all now citizens of the U.S. of A. My wife just got her citizenship. She was, of course, a resident before that, so she had her green card and everything. But yeah, she just became a citizen. So we are done with giving lawyers and the government our money and filling out forms. Well, I mean, I guess we're not, because there's still every year all the taxes and the filling out forms for all of your license and property, et cetera, et cetera. So you'll never be done with that, but we're done with all that mess. It's unbelievable how broken the U.S. immigration system is, just on so many levels. I know it's an extremely political subject, but there's tons of really good people that need to be in this country, and even some of those that came in illegally that need to be in this country, that are a benefit to society, and those people suffer and given a hard time and deported and everything. And then we've got people that definitely do not need to be here, so, and they get a lot of the easy stuff. So yeah, I really wish, for the sake of people wanting to come to this country, would some of that stuff would change, because we are a country of immigrants. It's just we want people that are a benefit. Whether it doesn't matter where you're from, but yeah. So yeah, super exciting news. We're thrilled, and that's just something that we don't have to worry about anymore. So yeah, we're super excited about that.
Awesome. How long did that take, Logan, start to finish?
As far as the whole process?
Yeah.
So we've been married for 7 years.
Yeah.
And it's been a whole ordeal there. So I mean, it took us, a couple of years to get all the things filled out and get, the government goes back and forth with this letter, that letter. We need this information, that information. And you really don't want to mess anything up. Luckily, we were really blessed to have a lawyer that practiced immigration that went to church with us, and a very good, honest guy that didn't charge us an arm and a leg. We still compensated him for his time and everything, but didn't charge us the $10,000-$15,000 that a lot of these lawyers charge. So it's a long process to get your green card, to get the residency. And, that can take a year or two. And sometimes you've got to go back to your country of origin and then come back into the U.S. And then 3 years after you've been a permanent resident, you have the choice to become a citizen, or after 10 years, you can renew that residency. So we chose to go ahead and have my wife be a citizen, and that just, eliminates all that. But yeah, it's been a, 5 to 7 year process pretty much of getting that done.
Wow. Well,
you can get the first part of that done a little quicker, but still, you're looking at a minimum of probably about 4 years to be able to become a citizen.
Well,
I'm sure there's other ways to, maybe do it quicker, or that's going to take longer because, the laws are just so ridiculous. But in our case in particular, that's what it took us.
Good. Well, congratulations for sticking it out,
Thank you.
time consuming. For my end, not a whole lot going on. Just trying to we're supposed to get a little rain, but I didn't get a whole lot. I think there's a little bit more coming, but rain would be nice. Cows are doing good. They're finishing up. They'll have enough grass until it's time to go to the processor. So that's all that matters to me. So they're doing well, and this warm weather, the grass actually keeps on growing a little bit, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
Normally by now it's had a couple frosts maybe and gotten a little nippy, but it's actually uncomfortably warm sometimes when you're going outside. You're literally expecting it to be cool, and it's like, why'd I put this long sleeve shirt on? This was stupid, but hey, that's life, and we'll adapt. But that's about it for me.
All right. Yeah, I just been busy with work and we're building the cabin out on my land. Logan's been helping me with that, and we did a little experiment in off-grid power yesterday. I brought a one of these little solar charging units. This little Blue Eddy thing here. It's got like a 600 watt output. We did try to run a little power angle grinder off of that thing, but basically we plugged it in and it drained the battery in like 2 seconds. So yeah, it's only a 600 watt little unit, and it's pretty much only for like running and charging phones, or if you had like power tools, charging your power tools or something like that. But it does come in handy for stuff like that. This one is one of the smaller units they make, but it does come in handy. It's the Blue Eddy EB3A. It's a 600 watt output, and 268 watt hour battery bank. So, if you're using a power tool that's going to consume like, I don't know, 700 watts or something continuously, it'll drain that battery down pretty quick.
We should have tried putting the chop saw on it.
Yeah.
That there was a lot of comedy yesterday. I went and bid a job, and so I had in my mind bidding jobs, and I've got my tape measure and my pencil and my paper. And that's pretty much all I need. And so I got there, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about cutting metal. So didn't have a generator. I don't have a battery angle grinder. So yeah, it was a lot of comedy, and yeah, I did.
We eventually figured out a way.
It lasted probably 15 seconds, I'd say. Probably about 15 seconds of cut time is what we got.
Yeah. We were just trying to figure out a way to cut the stupid metal without having to use tin snips or whatever. Because we're cutting it long ways. So eventually Logan had figured out an alternative method that worked out pretty good. But yeah, we got to test that out a little bit. But tonight I wanted to talk to you guys about a little bit about some power considerations on your homestead if you're connected to the grid, or if you're not, if you don't want to be connected to the grid, if you want to go off grid or something like that. To talk a little bit about what you can do for power, what you can have for backup power on your homestead, and some of the multiple ways you can do that. So I want to give you guys a resource here, and I got to meet these and talk to these guys at Signature Solar at the Self-Reliance Festival, and they have a lot of good stuff on their website. They sell a lot of different products when it comes to off-grid power stuff. So these guys, getting to talk to them, they are working with the manufacturers in China, and I think those Chinese manufacturers are looking to move into the United States. From what I can see, the products that they're making are probably the lowest cost and have the most capabilities out of all the other stuff I've seen out there so far, and have the best. I would say have a really good support for these systems that they're putting out there. These EG4 systems. So I also got to talk to them a little bit about their solar panels and getting to ask them how they get some of these solar panels, and they seem to be able to have an inventory of a lot of these panels that were, I guess, they've been sitting there in inventory in people's warehouses, and they're like just wanting to move them. So they work with a bunch of these different companies. I think they kind of have conglomerated a lot of them, and they work with a lot of them to buy and sell these panels. But there's back when I started this back in 2018 or so, looking around for panels and everything, the best prices that I could find were typically like in the 60 cents a watt range. And now I think maybe with advancements in the solar panel technology and more of these solar installations going in, that there's like a lot of this like back inventory of stuff that's already been shipped to the US that's sitting here. And because of the tariff situation as well, may have something to do with this as well. But the price per watt of these panels has come way down. So if you wanted to do a DIY install, the best way that I've found and the cheapest price you can get on panels is to buy a pallet worth of panels. And those are typically like 20 to like 26 panels, something like that. And they'll come in a pallet, they'll get shipped via freight to you. You can receive them, or you can receive them somewhere that has a loading dock where they have a forklift or something like that, that they can get these panels off because they're going to be really heavy. And whoever that wants to get some kind of solar installation going, if you can talk to them ahead of time before you say you're thinking about purchasing some panels, looking to do a group buy, and would anybody be interested in some panels? And that's where you're going to get the cheapest price for solar if you want to use solar as an option. So I wanted to throw that out there because a lot of people maybe want to do some kind of project and they just don't know, where to begin. But yeah, getting yourself, if you wanted to get into some solar, check out these guys at Signature Solar. And see what it would take to get like a pallet's worth of panels and get your best price on those. there are, different technologies in these panels and things like that. There's like these, I guess they call them bifacial. There's, and I think those can collect. I'm not entirely sure what the bifacial technology is, if how much gain in solar collection you get with those, with that technology. But the other, I guess the other considerations are these monocrystalline panels versus polycrystalline panels. And I think the advantage that you get with, I think you get some advantage with the monocrystalline versus the polycrystalline on the efficiency in the panels. So as far as like shading concerns and for portions of the panels being shaded, I think you get a better output with the monocrystalline panels. And then whenever you buy these panels, that they're going to give you a power output rating, and that power output rating is based on like completely ideal conditions. So you're never going to produce the amount of power that the panel is rated for. From what I've found out playing with the solar stuff. So you'll typically get like up to 80% of whatever its rated power is, because that power rating is based on it being at the perfect angle to the sun, at the perfect temperature conditions, on the perfect day, is what that output is spelled out for. So
Wait, question on that. You said, did you say 8%?
80.
Okay, 80. Okay, yeah, I knew I had to mishear that, because I was thinking, so a 100-watt panel can max do 8 watts. I knew I had to miss. Yeah, 80. Okay, so if I've got a 100-watt panel, I'm looking at 80 watts being the max that I can get out of that. What would you say is more like with somebody who is a dum-dum when it comes to solar doing stuff? What do you think somebody like me would get out of a 100-watt panel?
Depends.
If I just like, I do enough research to get it to where it's like, I know I'm putting it at an angle. I don't put it in the shade. I do everything that I can as a DIYer. Do you think you're going to get close to that 80, or is it going to be more like, a 50, 60? Just a guesstimate.
Yeah, guessing you're probably going to be on the lower end, maybe 60% of the rated power. I mean, during so you got to understand that during the winter, the sun angle changes. You guys know this, that in the winter time you're sitting lower in the sky, and then in the summertime you're sitting higher in the sky, so it's more above your head, so to say. So the angle changing is going to affect your amount of power that you're collecting. And the solar panels, they lose efficiency the hotter they get. So when it's the summertime and people have these things mounted on their roofs and they have all that heat build up during the day, they're actually they're not able to put out as much power because they're getting so hot, and it's hard for them to dissipate all that heat. And that's why when we talk to people, if we're going to help them with a project, me and one of my buddies have helped a couple of people work on projects, and when we're talking to them, we encourage them to go with ground mounted systems, because they can handle the heat a lot better and be able to have more air flowing past the panels to help cool them better, and rather than roof mounting, because the people that go in and mount these on the roofs, they often don't do a very good job on getting those installed correctly, and it can cause leaks in your roof. And that on top of it's harder to maintain the panels if something goes wrong while they're mounted up there, and it's just more challenging in general to mount them on your roof. Now, if you don't have the space, you don't have an area that you can put a ground mount, that's your only option. And then you want to make sure that they get installed correctly, and you'll have to work with it if that's all you have, and you want to have some kind of backup system. But if at all possible, a ground mount system is superior, is the most superior way to do this, in my opinion. So yeah, I mean, during the winter time, you actually increase efficiency, because the colder the panel, the better the output can be. I guess due to entropy reasons, because these crystalline, the collectors are more organized in their structure when they're cooler. So they produce a higher total output. So they actually get more efficient in the wintertime.
Okay.
The sun is less powerful or whatever in the sky. You get less gain from the sun.
Yeah. So being in the deep south, like the thing that interests me most about solar is using it for either refrigeration or air conditioning, just because it's really hard to do any kind of like wood or passive solar to accomplish those things. Because I mean, in the wintertime here, I mean, I can do just a little bit of firewood and I could keep my whole house warm, no problem. We do not have severe winters, but we do have brutal summers. So I've thought about solar for a lot of like cooling things. What are some of is there anything you can do besides putting it on a rack system to keep it cool, rather or keep it cool during the summer to increase that efficiency? Other things just besides having the airflow underneath those panels and not having them up on a hot roof. Is there anything else that can be done to up that efficiency?
I think there is. And I mean, you could run like a passive, or you could run like some kind of fluid behind the panels or something to like kind of collect some of that heat energy and then store it. But I've never messed with any of that kind of stuff before, so I wouldn't know how to tell you guys to do any of that stuff. Chloe, you can chat in the chat room, but I don't think I can pull you on the show right now, mainly because I don't know you. So, but say what you got to say in the chat. Anything you want to say in the chat.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely cover anything that's said in the chat. 100%. We're not famous YouTube stars, so we got time to look at the chat.
Yeah. Hey, Greg, are you gonna concentrate on solar, or are you gonna do different types of energy systems? Or I didn't want to change the subject if you're just going to stick on solar this go round.
Solar is what I'm most familiar with, but
Gotcha.
there's also some other stuff out there that I would like to mention, like wood gasification. And
Real interested in that one.
yeah, like wood gasification is another method to where you can gasify wood and put it into a combustion generator, internal combustion generator. And then, other methods are like setting up a micro hydro system, something like that. Like if you have a flowing water source on your property, you could set up a little turbine to collect and flow that water. I've never set up one of those systems, so I don't really have any idea on how to do that.
Yeah, well, the reason I was asking about different types of system, and Logan brought up a definite conundrum we have in the South is just it's just brutally hot for a long period of time, and even if you've got a system that's real efficient, it's probably maxing out during the summer anyway. You're probably running as much energy, consuming as much energy as possible in the summertime if you want to try to cool with it. That's why I was thinking, and Logan, you probably thought of this or maybe not, but for cooling, and it would work just as well as heating as well. And I've always wanted to like this approach was geothermal, because that doesn't, that's just using the core temperature of the earth. It's not really using quote unquote electrified energy like we think about with windmills and solar and stuff like that. Obviously you need fans to circulate the air to get the cool air from out of the ground and circulate it to your house. But that seems like it just seems to me to be the simplest design, because really once you have it installed, you're really just circulating air, at that point, right? That you're going down into the ground and basically getting your warm air from your house cooled by the stable core temperature of the earth, whatever it might be where you're at. I don't know everything about it, but with solar and a lot of these other systems, and Greg, I'm kind of big on as few moving parts as possible, the least amount of technology to get the job done. Because in a fragile system, or in a system where you don't have parts availability, and try to, because if things get really bad and there's no more inverters, there's no charge controllers, all the electronics is either rare, expensive, or completely unavailable. It kind of, I think, can cause some issues, right? Because you're relying heavily on technology as opposed to a simple system. So, and as you know, I'm advocate for the super simple stuff as opposed to getting too technically involved, because number one, I hate maintaining systems.
Yeah.
I mean, just as a homeowner, your refrigerator goes out, your washer and dryer goes out. It's like there's things that's constantly breaking, right? And it's just the world we live in. So if you can get as simple, I'm an advocate for that. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, geothermal is some pretty cool stuff. I really haven't got to play with any kind of geothermal systems yet. But there's different ways you can do that. Like, I know a friend of our family's, he has like a pond, and they run some tubing into like kind of the lower section of his pond. And I think he uses that in conjunction with his his air conditioning system at his house, to kind of keep the temperature around that heat exchanger, like basically less of a temperature difference, I believe. So,
Right.
So there is a multitude of ways of doing that, and if you can, like Alan Booker, that comes to our meetings sometimes and attends our meetings. He was talking about a design for a geothermal like heating and cooling system that's just like super simple, which is just one section of pipe that's buried 18. I think it has to be below, like it has to be like 4 feet below the whatever the local frost line is or something like that. And that way you keep a more stable temperature all the time. And if you could set up a system like he's talking about, I think he did the calculation. They did the calculations and determined you had to have like 100 something feet in like a 45-degree bend to go up into the structure that you wanted to use that in. And just that it's called this thermosiphon effect, I believe, because you have this colder air that you're pulling in down through the earth, and as it heats up, as it's getting closer to the surface, it's starting to heat up, and then that is going to cause a natural draw to happen where it's pulling in that cooler air and then rising and coming up to whatever you have. And that's like totally like no parts or components that can fail. This is like just a natural system that once it's installed, it should like continue to keep working. And then you could install something that could run a fan if you wanted. But yeah, these systems are completely achievable, and it just depends on how it depends on your local environment, and do you have access to the equipment that you can use to trench, and is it something that you want to invest in and look into?
Yeah, that idea about using a pond, which I completely never thought about that, but I remember when I was installing an aerator in my pond when it actually had water in it. Ha ha, funny. And it was only maybe 4 feet deep. It maybe came up to just below my chest while I was walking around in there. I had tennis shoes on, and that mud at the bottom was cold.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't just cool. That was cold. It was like a amazing temperature difference between the outside air temperature and the mud on the bottom of that pond. It was like, wow, this is interesting, and that would, and if you're using that to circulate, obviously, like you said, over what distance, and you've got thermal loss and so on and so forth. But it's that's pretty good. That's an excellent idea. But anyway,
so
yeah.
It if I'm not mistaken, I think that water is actually hands down the best conductor of heat. It just works well at storing. But there's all kinds of stuff you can do with water to help heat greenhouses, because the water can absorb the heat of the sun during the day and then keep it warm at night. Something that I'll mention, that when we lived in our apartment, we had 2 bedrooms, and there was one room that was our room, and then there was one room that was the fish room. And so it had somewhere around something like 14 or 15 aquariums and some other stuff in there that was, big water batteries. And that room actually stayed pretty cool, just because they had so many heat sinks in it. So I think there's a lot that could be done with that. We've got a pond that we're going to be digging that's going to be just down from our house. And I've thought about, some ways that I couldn't run some kind of pipe down in the bottom of that pond, which is going to be somewhere around 8 foot, I think, deep, which, that may be all the cooling we ever need. But I feel like, especially with the humidity and everything, if you want to be like in modern comfort, maybe your body needs to adjust and live like a more natural human. But if you want to be in like the modern, like, real cool air conditioning, I don't know if there's any way to unless you had something like a cave that you were pumping air out of. And I know there are some homes here in Alabama that actually use cave systems to cool their homes. And that's, 55 degree temperature, I think, coming out of those caves, air temperature. So, that there would be extremely comfortable during a hot summer. But, I'm not saying that it couldn't be done, but, as far as like for modern convenience, I think the easy button is, some efficient form of air conditioning. And what my question is there, because I know during the heat of the day, your panels are going to be working more efficiently because of the sun, which now that you've mentioned that about the heat, Greg, they may drop some in efficiency because they're getting hot. But it would make sense to me to find the most efficient unit and have those solar panels work and not necessarily put into the battery, but just run like air conditioning during the hottest part of the day. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of stuff that can be done to mitigate your air conditioning needs. Stuff like heat sinks, maybe something like a pipe going into a pond or a geothermal, or, even stuff like in kitchens, if you did some concrete, some masonry stuff, some granite countertops, that can make a huge difference, especially if you're getting any kind of solar gains into your house, heating it up, of just absorbing that heat and then dissipating it at night, which sometimes in Alabama, that would not be a good thing because we have some pretty muggy nights.
Yeah, there's tons of ways that you can do the heating and cooling more passively. Like, one of the things that you could do is just to plant more trees on the south side of your house, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I did a tour of some folks that were living pretty much off grid in Blount County. I think they do this every year, called the Solar Homes Tour. And, they were recommending having your shading on the east and west sides of your house, so that, you're blocking, the sun throughout the most part of the day gets blocked to help with your heating and cooling type stuff. And a lot of them only run like, there was one in particular that was a yurt with another yurt built around it. They built a wooden structure around their inside yurt tent, and they just kept one room cool with a window unit AC system. So
what was the name of that? Did you say it was Solar Home Tour?
Yeah, it's called the Solar Home Tour. I think if you want to go look it up and go check it out sometime. It's out in Blount County, and they're people that had moved out there. They did like one of those kind of intentional community type things back in must have been like this maybe early 80s or something like that. And they had all moved out onto a piece of land. They're not all part of that community. There's some other folks that are in that area. Just some folks decided to coalesce around that area and form a community. And they're all kind of doing off-grid type stuff and have different demonstrations of, like, one's like a straw bale house where they did straw bales for the insulation and all that kind of stuff. And then one was the earthen house, so it was dug into the earth. and one of them was like that yurt. And they're just like different ways that you can do alternative methods for building and collecting and using power and stuff like that. So since we're on the kind of the low tech side of things, we're kind of talking about those for as far as energy methods go. This was an old technology called a trompe, and they used to use this in mining operations until we had motors and stuff that could compress air and pull them down into the mines. But they used to do this just by gravity, by running water into a pipe, and you would have these air inlets at the top that would, just from the flowing water past those inlets, it would draw that water in with the air in with the water, and you would pull that down into like a reservoir of some kind, and you would compress the air in this reservoir from this falling water action and moving all this water in, and you could pull that off to have fresh air somewhere, and it would be cool, and it would be dry. It would be dry as well, dry, cool air, and you could move that to wherever you wanted it to. So I have seen some folks on YouTube play with some ideas with the trompe thing, and Logan, like you were saying, you could utilize your solar as a way to run some fluid pumps during the day while you have the sun, or run your air conditioning during the day and not need to have like a battery bank or anything like that. There are like the direct solar stuff now that you can do that with. You could use it to run a water heater during the day, and heat your water. All these things that, if you think about it, they're all, basically creating a battery. You're storing energy into either the form of heat or in a potential energy as far as gravity goes. So pumps with like DC pumps and solar, you can do that kind of stuff. The ultimate in resiliency, I think, would be to, like John saying, go super low tech and go back to some of these more some of these older ways of doing things, including the geothermal kind of stuff, and just pipes, and using what we have as far as the earth, and doing it more kind of working with nature, I guess, rather than we kind of brute force everything now.
Well, yeah, that was one of the other old technologies, basically on the same line as what the old spring house that they used to build on properties, which was where that was before refrigeration, is where you kept things cool. And of those, if nobody knows what that is, a spring house is basically a small enclosure built around a spring, and the water is flowing in there. It's usually in the shade. It's not directly out in the sun. And that cold water flows across, a concrete floor or rocks or whatever. And those are kind of like your batteries, right? They keep some of the cold in there. And, in the middle of the summer, it's a lot cooler in there. It's not, it's not 40 degrees. It's not like you're going to keep the ice cream in there or anything, but, it's enough to keep, certain types of food, relatively fresh. And actually, this is not about food, but that's where they put dead bodies.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Gives a little flavor to that spring water. Get you a little corpse flavored spring water. Oh, did John freeze up?
Yeah, I think you did. Um,
Well, you know, going off of what he said, though, there are people that have taken refrigerators and taken copper pipe and run the spring that they have running through that copper pipe into the refrigerator and got stuff down pretty cool. Like I said, like John was saying, I don't think that it's necessarily like the ultimate in refrigeration, but you know, if you can keep something down in like the 50s, there's a lot of stuff that'll keep at those cooler temperatures, and you don't necessarily have to have, you know, 30, 36 degrees to keep stuff. So I don't know, but yeah, I think that insulation too is a big thing, and ice. Like there's a lot of stuff that we do now more with ice than we do with refrigeration and freezing. And from what I'm seeing, you know, I'm not a big expert on electricity or efficiencies, but from what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing, a lot of times it's easier to, I should say more efficient and cheaper to freeze water and make ice and keep it in an insulated box than it is to do a lot of these refrigeration type, you know, projects as far as off grid. So, yeah, that's something definitely to look into as well. Is just what you can do with ice and a good insulated structure or insulated box. There's broken uh, deep freezers everywhere. I mean, you can get a broken deep freezer, no problem. They build them now to where they break down, so people are constantly having to throw them out.
yeah, I don't know how much power those little. Are you talking about getting like an ice maker
Yeah,
and then just using some really good coolers to kind of supplement
yeah.
that?
Well, and it's a battery. Um, ice is a battery, and so it's a way of being able to not have necessarily a compressor, running. And well, another thing is just keeping your freezers full. So we use a lot of like water bottles frozen. So if we don't have um, meat just occupying every square inch of the freezer, we can take some of those water bottles and throw in there and it work as a battery if you had a power outage or whatever. But no, yeah, what I'm looking into is, and maybe not like some of the ice makers that are like just a counter type. I'm thinking of maybe doing something that's just a step up that might have some more efficiencies in it, and that might be more of towards a commercial grade, not necessarily like one of the big, ice machines that you see on the side of the road, but something that would produce a significant quantity and only plug it in when you need it and store the ice. Not necessarily even in freezers, bagging it up, but just having it to where you can produce some larger quantities and then putting it up and storing it and only using it when you need it, because the life of those machines, it can extend a lot more if you don't have it just constantly plugged in.
The ice. Oh,
The ice machine. So if you're not just constantly making ice, then the lifespan of that machine is going to be a lot longer if you're doing it just when you need it. Rather than having something that's like in a refrigerator that just constantly, produces ice as you use it. One of those constant, like, got to keep it running type of deal.
That does make sense. The I have kind of been looking at like how expensive those little things are, and when you think about having to go to the gas station and pick up a bag of ice every time you go somewhere or whatever, it makes a lot of sense. Like we just do the old fashioned, like you said, freeze some water in trays and do ice cubes that way. We don't have a ice maker or anything like that. So it does seem to make sense when you're talking about keeping some stuff cool and coolers and things like that. on the homestead. John, what's going on with you, man? Connection issues. Okay.
Yeah, I got a little satellite issue here, so I keep fading in and out. So I'll just
Roll with it.
yeah, I was talking about the spring houses and putting dead bodies in there, and that's about when it cut out. So I guess it's a clue for me to stay off that subject, I guess. So anyway, it's all good.
Yeah, but
Yeah, you froze up. I said there was you could get you a little bit of corpse flavored water.
Yeah, but all those old ways are, still relevant today. I mean, if we came into a situation to where, we didn't have a power grid or something like that, we would have to go back to a lot of those things. And even the folks that have solar power systems, if there's components and things that go down in those systems, you're not going to be able to get one, if our whole grid system goes down. So, you're basically going to have to use what you have for as long as it lasts, and then, do your best on repairing what you have and have spare components and things that sitting there for you if you need them as redundancies for solar power stuff. So if you have a system set up, but it is one of the technologies that is out there right now that's available to folks. And it looks like we lost Logan as well. So it is one of those things that is out there and it is available to folks right now. But also, some of these old ways of doing things would be really good to be playing around with as well. The geothermal thing is very interesting to me. I would like to really try that by burying.
Well, you know what it wasn't intentional for this purpose when I built my house. Is I wanted to have a porch, so I have a porch on the south and the west side of my house. But you've been there, Greg. It's a big old wide porch. And what that does is it keeps the sun off of your house. Those porches reach out quite a bit, and it keeps the walls of your house from getting direct sunlight on it and then heating up, the walls of your house and, so on and so forth. It actually is pretty darn good. And then, you see, houses used to have porches on them, for a reason, I think. And so those designs are something if you're, if you have the luxury of, you're going to build an off-grid home or whatever, the design of that house is probably even more important than whatever energy system that you decide to use, because it's going to, if built properly, without getting really exorbitant in cost, but just some of those features built into it, and obviously in good insulation and stuff like that, you can get pretty darn efficient, because let's just face it, houses built in the last 40, 50, 60 years really, are not as thermally efficient as, well, even old ones probably worse, but that's just because the type of insulation they used in those old houses broke down and they don't even work anymore. They've crumbled into dust and you don't have any insulation. Just design in and of itself is a great way to cut down on the amount of energy that you need, as opposed to having this great system that can produce X amount of kilowatts and blah, 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 blah. And it's, just a good design can help a whole lot.
That's a really good point, and a lot of the materials have gotten better as far as like insulation values and stuff like that, but the building designs have just become these square, brick houses. Slap up like 100 of them real quick, and they're not designed to be efficient at all when it comes to the sun beating down on them in the area that they're in, and completely wide open to the sun all day, just having to drive their air conditioning and all the time and everything. So yeah, that is really important, is to consider all those things. And think about the design before building something in whatever climate region you're in, so that you don't have to use a ton of energy if you don't, or zero energy if possible. But yeah, that's a good point.
Question real quick, Greg. Sorry to jump off of the efficiency deal and to go back to solar, but panel wattage right now, what's the highest? Is it something like 800 watts you can get for a panel now? Is that the highest rated panels, or is it closer down to like the 500 or 600 range?
Yeah, I think I've seen maybe some 600 watt outputs, but I mean, I don't know what all is out on the market right now.
Right.
But the larger panels, they're like typically like the 72 cell panels that are, if you're getting like the monocrystalline ones, they're like I think those are like 6 feet by like 3 feet, something like that, and about 50 pounds a piece. But I think there may be some that are bigger and have a higher power output now. So the technology keeps changing. They keep getting a little bit more efficient, and so I think that's why there's quite a bit of a secondary market, as well as those tariffs as well. So like getting the panels, and like if you wanted to have some panels just sitting somewhere as a backup, in case something goes down, at least you'd have a way of creating some power.
Yeah, so like the reason I asked is because I just looked it up about the ice maker, and an ice maker that we would want will do about 100 pounds in 24 hours. So 100 pounds of ice is a lot of ice, and it'd be something if you were doing processing, or you wanted to have several things that you were keeping cool. You could do something kind of like what John was talking about, like a spring house that's maybe just built into the side of a hill, almost like a root cellar. But if you had a small solar system that could run that ice maker, and I looked it up, it's 198 watts is what they run. So you're looking at the most, 200 watts that it's going to run. And if you're keeping it in a really well insulated little house in those, freezers that the compressors have gone out of, I mean, it's pretty much just a cooler. It's a really well insulated box. You could probably run everything except for things that you needed to be frozen in there, and you could probably run a dedicated freezer too, just to have somewhat of a buffer in between times that you were processing meat and stuff. The ice maker is like $400 on Amazon. Got really good reviews, it looks like. And if you're only using it at certain times, say you plug it in for just a few days to make a few 100 pounds of ice, then it looks like a pretty viable option. I've still got to do some math on it, because a lot of times something can sound like it would be like a really good idea, but can end up costing you more than just the conventional way of doing things. But it's been something I've been thinking about a lot, especially considering how well the meat does when I, age it on ice. And so it's been something I've been looking into, and it would be a super low tech, but also married with some of the modern tech with, a small solar system. Because if you're only doing like 200 watts in your little processing shed that's really well insulated and everything, you could maybe run like just 3 or 4 panels and a little battery bank, something to run it overnight, maybe. I don't know exactly how much those batteries will hold to run something that's going to draw, 200 watts constantly over like a, 12 or 16-hour period, depending on what time of year.
Yeah, there are several of these little portable battery systems now that they're different battery capacities, but I will tell you they have come down quite a bit in price, like depending on how much storage you want over, since 2018. So I guess it's, what has that been, like 6 years since 2018 now, something like that. So when I set up my system, I think I paid like $5,500 for a 3,000 watt inverter, battery charge controller system. And for like more capabilities now, I just my buddy AJ just went and got one of these EcoFlow systems. It's like 4 kilowatt output, and then I can't remember. I think it's like 4.4 kilowatt hours worth of battery storage in the thing for like 30, maybe like, I don't know. I think he paid like $2,500 for that thing, something like that. So it was like, he's getting more capabilities out of that at like half the price that I paid in 2018. So it's still somewhat expensive, but for somebody that just wants to have, a backup like that and do something like you're talking about, there's 2 options. You can either DIY your system and have something that's going to be there permanently, or you can go and look at one of these portable solar power units that these guys have put together. And I think the Signature Solar guys use the Anchor product. My buddy AJ just got one of these EcoFlow products, and I think we're going to take it down to the property and actually test it out. He wants to test it out, not just to have it, he's got it as a backup for emergencies and stuff, but he'd like to get it field tested and stuff. So we'll take it out there and check it out. But yeah, there's a lot of options out there on the market right now for doing stuff like that. So the batteries and the charge controller inverters was the pinch point in cost for putting together these little systems.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where most of the cost is going to come into play. But if you wanted to do just like some kind of direct solar type thing, where you go into like a micro inverter that just takes DC input and then it just changes it to the AC output, that you can run things only during the day while you have the sunlight, and then it's creating that ice and all that kind of stuff. You could do that too.
I like that idea.
But those micro inverter devices are, I think one of them that I spec'd out, because we were looking at maybe doing this with a heating element for a water heater, and I think that was like $1,200 like a year ago, something like that. So I don't know what it costs right now. But yeah, there's a bunch of different little options and different ways you could do it. But yeah, I guess that gets us up on about an hour for tonight. If we want to go around and let everybody know where people can find you and help support you.
All right. Well, I'm Logan, and you can find me at Hideaway Homestead on YouTube, Gmail, and I am now on X, but still have not posted anything except for the pictures from last week. So still need to get a little active over there. I've just never been into using social media besides YouTube. So Gonna be something I'm gonna have to work on. But yeah, you can get in contact with me pretty easy, especially on YouTube.
Yeah,
All right.
well, my name's John Tejan, DJ Cattle Company. You can find me on X at Soul Survivor 78, and be glad to engage with you however you choose. But always looking for new customers for grass-fed beef. If you're in the local area, I don't deliver outside the local area, so it's all good. But we'll take care of that when it happens. But it's all good.
All right. Thanks, guys. And I'm Greg Dowd. I am the host of the Tinker Tribe podcast, and you can check that out here on this channel and follow along with some projects and things that I'm working on. And if you are into getting yourself in better shape, you want some motivation, go check out my fitness channel, Take the Ride 23, on pretty much all the platforms. So with that, guys, we'll see you later, and we'll catch you guys next time. Peace.